Well, went live just before the clock ticked over to 1 minute past, so I think we got it. Hello, everyone. We weren't around last week, but we're back. I'm Alan, and the rest of these people are the open source team at Anchore, working on rather cool tools like Syft and Grype. These are the little mascots here. And we just do some work on a Thursday. Well, it's evening for me. I guess it's afternoon for you guys, just. And we go through bug triage and various other open source maintenance things for these wonderful tools. Anyone got anything they want to start with, or should we just dive straight in? Thumbs up from Chris.
Dive in.
Send it. If you want to find out any more about us, you'll find it all on anchor.com/open source or over here on GitHub. We tend to dive into, what should we dive into? We shall look at issues that need discussion. Oh my gosh, we've got some.
Oh goodness, right. One of them's mine on the very top.
This one's yours, is it? Okay, Let's go for it. This is 3983. Let me open the chat, Chattanooga. There you go. And I'll pop it in the YouTube chat. So, what's this? Configuration files described in SPDX with described by relationships are imported as Syft packages.
Yes. Oh. So there is a link there, the 3662. We made a decision. So the background is some images we scan have embedded SBOMs, chain guard images, for example. If you enable the SBOM cataloger, Syft is able to read those SBOMs and surface the packages as part of a larger thing. And the things that are in those SBOMs are some things that we don't know necessarily how to deal with. So we had been surfacing everything as packages. And an example is we had curl, 1.2.3-R1 as a package, and then a separate one that was curl 1.2.3. And the reason is the SBOM had a generated from the R1 version to the non-R1 version, which means that the R1 version is the one that was installed in the system. That's what the intent is. And the other one is some upstream one that, might have some different vulnerabilities that it was based on, but it's not the same thing. So we made the decision to exclude that based on this generated from relationship, because today Syft is only, the intent is that Syft is only surfacing things that it believes are installed in the scan target that you have. So then there was another thing that came up. There are some YAML files that also showed up as packages, and that's because they were described by, like their packages, again, in the same SBOM, with described by relationships. And so rather than do like whack-a-mole as to what's the right thing to do here, in the original issue that we started with, I listed out all the SPDX relationships, and maybe as a team thought, hey, could we quickly kind of go through here and determine if there are some more things we should be excluding beyond the described by and the generated from, that we sort of have some things. So there's a comment in here, and I copied and pasted the whole set of SPDX relationships, the 2.3 relationships, since that's what we support today. And I, I don't really necessarily know what the right answers are here. But I thought it would be helpful to have the team kind of, identify any of these that we think we should probably do the same type of filtering for.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
It's a little bit of a list. And we don't necessarily have to do it on the stream here, but this is what this one was about.
I mean, but I definitely am interested in talking about what we think, what would be the rules of thumb for when something gets included versus not. So I think generated from has got the rule of thumb of, we know that what it was generated from, or don't have proof that it is present, so thus we exclude it. As opposed to, like, there's lots of like dependency of stuff. And though we don't include all dependency of, so the dev dependency of, build dependency of, et cetera, like we're not necessarily including all those. Like it's a pretty good hint that we should leave some of those, because they are like, so like runtime dependency of, that's present. So we know we should probably leave that one. Whereas build dependency of is questionable because, well, it may or may not be present, but like it could be that the build step happened way before, like after the artifact was captured and there's no more build tooling around. So anyway, we got one category, which is like, is the relationship really show or indicate that a thing is present or not guaranteed to be present? In which case, generated from is a pretty good candidate to throw out. But do we have any other rules of thumbs from looking at this list?
That was the main thing that I could sort of figure. Yeah, I mean, there's like you said, the build dependency of is one that's like probably something that was during the build time and not an indication of, build and test dependency. Like runtime dependency probably is there. Yeah, the generated from, like I said, probably indicates it's not in a similar, in the way we just described.
I think just described by or describes. It's at the very top, because that's actually not indicating, the other node for that edge is not a package.
Right.
Oh, sorry. I just saw that you have a filter column and it's actually filtered.
Yeah, this is also, I have a draft PR that currently is excluding the ones that I added the X's for in this list, as a start.
Do the nodes on either sides of these have a type? I don't remember, like, so if we say like xpdx ref A contains xpdx ref B, right? Do we know what A and B are? Because that changes my answer.
They are packages. We don't know. We potentially could convert them to Syft packages, and we at that point would have potentially some Syft package type there.
But like,
Sorry, I meant, do we know whether they're a file or a package or we don't know, they're just an entity in the document? I feel like I'm missing something about that.
We can definitely tell if they're packages or files. Yes, absolutely. If they're a top level SPDX thing, we can look that up and figure out what it is.
but sometimes things get represented as, so like container layers, for instance, get represented as archives. And I can't remember for some of this tooling, do they represent those as files specifically? Well, we don't have to answer that, but that's, I feel like they don't always represent packages, even though they are packages.
Yeah, there's and then there's a whole other aspect of this problem, which is this even the right thing to do? And should we import all of this stuff into the Syft data model and change the assumptions that we have today about things being installed packages?
I mean, yeah, that's a fun one to talk about. I mean, like if we had a clear way to express what is an installed package versus not, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say, like, having like, if you have to do a graph analysis, you have to like traverse a graph to come to that conclusion. It's not clear. And I think it's one of the downsides of SPDX is that you need to actually go and crawl the graph to understand what is present. So I think if you're creating a correct document, things that are present are those that have relationships back to the primary purpose package. So that would be like the source, the thing you're scanning. In this case, would be the container. And anything else that does not have a direct relationship to that primary purpose package can be assumed to not actually be present. That's the definition I've heard is most correct, but I mean, that requires you actually crawling the graph and really understanding like, hey, is there an edge for this particular package? Then and only then I can say it exists. And that's like just one step too far for a lot of users. And also there's a lot of users that aren't aware of that rule. So like they may be crafting SBOMs that are like not actually compliant, not following that rule. So then now you have a universe of like, given an SBOM that is an SPDX, do you know if they follow that rule? Like, you could kind of say that if there is at least one relationship from the source to a package, but that's not like a really great way to figure that out either. To answer your question, I think Syft should, if we're going to, right now we have this rule of thumb, if it's in the SBOM, it is present. But if we want to express more things that are not present necessarily, I would like a really clear way as probably an attribute on the package itself to say, are you present or are you not?
I was thinking about another option, which is like having another section for packages that's, let's say, related, which we could include things there, but we know, at least from the Syft data model, they're not artifact relationships. They're not artifacts that we think are present. They're just things we know about something about and have included there for whatever purpose, whether it was because of conversion or because of we thought that it was useful information.
Yeah, I like that option too. That has the extra benefit of any existing users that are using the JSON document wouldn't get confused by things showing up. They wouldn't have to know to look for that extra attribute. So even though it's easier to find that extra attribute, you couldn't make that mistake if it's in another section. But I do like that. Safer.
Well, so the other thing like to mention about all of this is that there is actually a community contributed PR that originally was doing the thing of kind of adding some types, and I'm not sure if it may be that one. Yeah, if you follow some of the links around here, there's definitely a link to it somewhere. Yeah, nope.
It's 3849.
Right, and so I made this change, just because of the assumption that we have, and there were some other concerns with some of the downstream tooling that that breaking that assumption would cause problems, the same way we just talked about. So we opted, like in the short term, to fix it by just excluding those packages, but in the longer term, I do think that like having some way to include them would be good. So I guess maybe that's really the question here. Like, is there something that we could agree on to update this PR here? Whether it is a separate thing or adding a flag, to get something moved forward where we can actually add those packages in.
I mean, an opt-in, either flag or config is, I think makes sense. It doesn't. So, I mean, are you saying that it would just include it into the standard section of like the artifacts section?
Well, I'm saying that's what this PR is doing today, but we could
Yeah.
go back to the author or make the changes ourselves if we said, hey, we're going to add a new section for these types of packages, if that was the answer, or if we said, hey, we should add a flag to indicate that this is an installed versus a not installed type of package. So, I mean, I think if we could come to that sort of agreement, then maybe we could, get this moved forward and have like a better, the nice thing about this is that it would help make our conversion better, because we would be able to represent more of the things from this PDX in our data model somewhere to do the round trip.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, that's always been like one thing we've wanted to nudge forward is to be able to really nicely like include all edge types, all nodes. I mean, I don't know, at a surface. Oh, sorry, Chris, I didn't see your hand raised.
No, keep talking about the at a surface level. Keep finish your thought. I have one more question after we kind of put the period on.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I if we add a config option that says like, hey, just include these extra things, then we're gonna have to deal with SBOMs that like have that mixed into like the artifact section, which makes me feel like we probably shouldn't have an opt-in thing that was gonna be harder for us to decode later. I think if we're gonna start including these things, we should do it with like, do this in a way that's going to make it easy for us to decode this stuff. So I think I want to say that's like the separate. Go ahead and introduce the new section, Keith, what you're proposing, because then it's very clear what is there, what is not there. It's safe to use. We can safely introduce these new packages, and we don't have ramifications on the previous versions of Grype, future versions of Grype. That's kind of, I think that's my gut instinct there. Is we don't want to do something that's in between, an ideal state and not. So
I agree. Yeah, for all the reasons we've already said. Okay, I think that sounds good to me. But Chris, did you have more to add?
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to Will's question about if we could tell if this was a file or package or like what section this exists in the SBOM. I was using Alex's dive program to just look at the chain guard image, and I just wanted to filter and find how or where brotool.yaml was entering into the SBOM. And I guess my first question is, are the chain guard image builds public? Are these open, like, is this curl image open source of like how the sauce of this gets made and where the SBOM gets generated for this? Because Brotil, the configuration file in the program itself is like a compression format program. And the only thing I could find in the image was one, the reference to it in the SPDX JSON that's at the varlib.db SBOM path. And the other is the actual userlib, Brotil common. And so I'm wondering, like, if this file is an artifact of the process of building the image, or if it's describing a configuration of Brotil that's available within the image. Basically, like, how is this getting into the SBOM? Are they trying to describe that they used the configuration file to generate this image? And is that correct usage of SPDX in the first place? All those questions.
My understanding, which definitely could be wrong, is that this configuration file is used to build the package that's included there. That's what I believe it's trying to convey. All the other things I really don't know.
Okay, awesome.
yeah, I mean, so I think I have like a little slightly more of an answer, but also just a bunch of unknowns. Like, yeah, the image is public, and B, so I think they're trying to like show like full provenance. So in theory, you should be able to use these YAML files to see like where, and, like how this was produced, and be able to use this to go produce it again if you need to. And I think this is a melange thing, but this is where I start getting into the unknown category. So.
All right, the Brotli mystery continues.
Well, I think so. It sounds like we've got a path forward, which is kind of what I really wanted to try to clarify. I mean, it's going to be a combination of a couple things because, we're going to have to use the relationships to put packages in the right spot, right? So like, there's going to be some amount of that, but it sounds like I have a path to get back to this community user who did contribute a pull request and say, hey, look, maybe we can do this. And so that's perfect. So I appreciate all of the feedback there.
Sweet. Are we done with that? Have you got everything you need?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. Right. So that was number 1. 20 minutes. Well done. Right. Who's are the next 3? Swift CVEs missed Grype when using Syft generated SBOMs. I had a look at this one earlier on today. I didn't tag it though. Who?
Don't think I had this one. Okay.
Keith, it's another one of yours. Should we pick a different one so you get a break? Or did you? This one is a conversation I think we've had somewhere.
I foreshadowed this one a little bit
Yes.
stand up before. I tagged this one last week because I did want to talk about either updating the hints data or talking through maybe solutions to how we deal with this kind of situation. Let me pull it up on my screen and I'll 2699. Great, 2699. Okay. So, what happens is that if you run the command that I put in my comment for anything that has like Electron in it or for the sample application, you'll find that there's no record or any kind of metadata within any of the files that we would normally scan that would pull forth that Electron is reliant on Chrome or Chromium in any way. So we're not able to generate a CPE or any kind of matching data for this. It's one of those like situations in vulnerability matching where a human immediately goes, "Oh yeah, I know Electron is on Chrome, therefore I should look at Chrome data. Oh, yep, it's definitely vulnerable." But a machine, like for machine purposes and for our program, we have no way to make that link. So is it worth us building like a known link of programs like Electron to Chromium and trying to generate CPEs for it in the case of vulnerabilities when generating the SBOM? Or do we want to go down maybe another path for how to link programs when there's no metadata to show that records from NVD should be associated to it even though they don't hint that they should be? That's the summary.
So, thinking of a really bad idea here, I'm not saying we should do this, but just theoretically, if we scanned every executable, and do you think that we could determine that there was some Chrome, some version of Chrome there, that it was an Electron app, but maybe more specifically that, hey, it looks like I see some Chrome, Google Chrome here, or Chromium or whatever it is. Like, is that something that we could potentially, let's say with a binary classifier, find in an executable, regardless of other things we find?
I think, well, my question is because I'm wondering that same question, but like for what they have here on this, like what's on the screen, like npm add electron, is a copy of Chromium even on disk at that point?
No,
Or,
not.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, that is, and then like the example that they use, they go, "Oh well, Sneak is doing this correctly," and Sneak does this correctly because they have that like data behind their scanner where they just link known programs that are aliases of each other or import each other like under the hood in some way. And so it's kind of a question of like, there's no evidence on disk in the source that we scan when doing an npm install in this way that Chromium is involved. We have to have some kind of backend or some data-driven approach that says, "Oh, you found Electron. You should also look under the Chromium CPEs while you're doing that because you found Electron." Like there has to be something smarter behind the scenes that's building that link for us if we wanted to do it in this way. There's no discoverability for it in the example given by the user.
Well, do we know that to be true though? Like I'm actually doing an npm add electron right now. It's taking it.
Yeah, same.
Sweet time.
I'm doing it on that laptop there, though, protecting myself. Yes, it is taking a long time.
I looked in the directory. I didn't. If you guys can find some evidence to do that, like that would be. Then that's an easy answer because then we can discover it. We can generate the CPEs, and then we just say we point the user to use CPEs because npm uses the GitHub data by default. So that would be the answer to it. But when I did the investigation on this earlier in the week, I couldn't find a Chromium, like a grep Chromium evidence.
So could we PR the like there are GHSAs that affect Chrome, right, that are unreviewed. We could PR them to add the npm package Electron as an affected. Right. This has no. It's I think it's unreviewed because GHSA only covers certain language ecosystems, but npm is one of them. So I'd be curious if we sent a PR and said like tried to figure out which version of Electron pulled in that build of Chrome, and sent a PR to this record saying like the npm package Electron before that version is vulnerable to this. That'd be interesting. Then everybody would start picking it up. And GitHub might say, guys, you're making stuff up here. This isn't the right thing to do. And it might be right, but that's one of the reasons we like scanning with GHSA, right? Is because there is that like possibility of sending a data fix upstream. I'm really curious how. Now I just want to know like how Electron apps work. Like in my head, I'm like, an Electron app is a Chrome tab that only goes to one website. That's like my mental model, but that's the whole thing. I realize there are some big gaps in that mental model that
Right.
would probably help me address this issue if I filled them in.
There's I'm sure there's more to it, but I mean, when you do have the app, you do have like Chrome on disk in some way. It's not Chrome, .exe or whatever, but it's like the Electron app itself has it built into the binary. But I really like the idea of like, why is Electron not being flagged with the same vulnerabilities? Because that's like, it really kind of is.
Yeah, I think especially if we find evidence that Electron actually brings down when you like npm install Electron, if it actually brings down like native code that is Chromium or derived from Chromium, then that makes a lot of sense. And like there's like even on their release page, the electronjs.org, there's like Chromium version support. So Electron targets Chromium even numbered versions, releasing every 8 weeks in concert with Chromium's 4-week release schedule. Electron 26 uses Chromium 116. Electron 27 uses Chromium 118. So that sentence makes me think that like the versioning, like we could point to a version of the npm package and say, this version is this version of Chrome. It seems like.
There's another nuance here, which I don't really know how it plays into the grand scheme of things, but I mean, Electron apps generally aren't going out to the internet and downloading random things that they're executing. They have all of the assets bundled into the app itself. So while something is maybe potentially vulnerable to an attack from an image, let's say, like this particular thing, the Electron apps aren't really the same way because they just don't have an image that is going to cause that problem. And they never will because they're not downloading random things from the internet.
I mean, some of them do.
Yeah. Some of them do, I'm sure. Yeah.
Right.
So I also linked in our chat that we share right now an example of a GHSA that is sourced to the package Electron. So we could find the applicable Chromium GHSAs and file affected ones and then link the Chromium GHSAs in there. I'm not sure if that's the path to go down and just say, hey, we found something that affects Electron. We found that it affected Electron because of this other GHSA that affects Chromium. Here, like you get your own entry and you reference the one that was referenced against, like if I just installed Chromium on my Linux machine, it could like pick it up via a package manager there. So there's like that way as well, and just try to get those reviewed and fast tracked. And then this has the benefit of then being filed under the npm ecosystem, and then we could match in that way. So there's that path, which is just make GHSA better, contribute the data, and then let the default matchers pick it up in that way. But I want to like go back. Are we fully just nixing we probably don't want to have the npm catalogers that discover Chromium to have CPEs added that would match against NVD Chromium? that discover Electron to match CPEs that would have Chromium information and match against NVD? Is that kind of like a no-op, we don't want to do that pattern kind of deal?
So I think I didn't understand the suggestion. So I found the Electron, they have a bot that just bumps Chromium in their repo. I dropped an example PR. And they just have a constant that just says, this is the Chromium version we use.
Right.
So I guess one of the things we could do is we could add an embedded Chromium embedded in Electron cataloger that like finds this thing and raises up a separate package for Chromium if you have the Electron source code. And then that package will have CPEs and be a binary package and do its thing. That's
Cool.
one path. And then I think, yeah. So what Keith, you have a hand up and you dropped a link. I'll let you talk.
Yeah. So I was just going to ask, does anybody know if there of any CVEs that affect Chrome? Do they happen to have Electron as part of they're just specifically against Chrome?
The ones in the issue don't have it because it's like Chrome is the parent package there, right? It's not like they're going to go upstream and be like, well, we know Chromium consumes us, so we're going to add CPEs for Electron as well. But Electron consumes Chromium. They don't add both of those programs into the CPE list.
Yeah, so I think I only checked one of them, but if you look at the original issue, there's the like sneak vanity link. But if you look at that link, there's like a CVE number in those. So all of those, like you can use that URL to turn it into to get a CVE and go check one.
I linked the examples at the bottom of mine, but yeah, you can follow that one. That's perfect.
And then, so I might change this to NVD, like go to the NVD page for the CVE, because the CPEs are easier to find, or at least I know where they are. So on the bottom of this page.
Yeah, I guess there's like a multiple sort of interrelated things here, but like, so that, yeah, this is kind of what I was looking for. So in this particular example, we have something that we know affects Chrome. It doesn't have Electron listed here. Also, by default, we only match NPM projects against GHSA and not against CPE matching. So we would need something
Right.
to allow those to somehow fall through, and then we could potentially like add those in our override data if we thought that those affected both of the products, right? Like we do have a spot where we could add some information to help this out.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. This one's actually a false positive, I think, because it's specific to Chrome on Windows, which makes it seem less likely that. I guess maybe it's gonna affect.
Yeah, if you run the Electron pack like app on Windows, then maybe.
So, Chris, with your suggestion, you were saying, well, hey, let's cross-link the vulnerability records such that when we hit one vuln record, we'll hit the other one automatically. And like, I really, I don't know, like, I really like the way that like kind of sits in Grype interop today in terms of like, well, find all the components and then find what those components are vulnerable to, which leans more towards instead of like linking the vuln records together. Because you can imagine, like, for every time like there's a new Chrome CVE, we need to understand if it's going to like tie back to Electron or not. So it's going to take some analysis to figure out if that should be associated or not. And whereas like for the component analysis, like as long as you know if Chrome is present or not, then the Chrome, CVEs apply. So like in this case, we have, here's the running on Microsoft Windows, so that would not apply. So we would have filtered it out. We didn't have to think about whether or not this should be connected or not.
Okay, so then that means there's like three ways we've discussed to solve this, and based on what Alex just said, maybe that's the path to go, which is like the synthetic component, like the component analysis. If you find Electron, add a Chromium component because we know it's tied in, have some business logic that does that, and then do the CPE matching on that Chromium component to get the vulnerabilities pulled in. Am I saying the right thing there?
Yeah, I think right. So we could try to add, summarizing, we could try to go to the GHSA version of these Chromium CVEs and add Electron as an affected package. We could try to enhance Syft so that we just find Chromium when you have Electron installed.
That's what that. Is that what the second option is, though?
Yep. It's the second one.
Yeah. Well, and I think because the option in our chat has a synthetic component, and I don't think it's a synthetic component. Like if npm install Chromium or npm install Electron takes a month, I feel like maybe there's actually a Chromium executable getting downloaded somewhere or something, and we should just be finding it.
Right. I mean, it's another cataloger. Whether or not the cataloger is going to look at like a manifest or if it's going to look at an actual Chrome binary is debatable. But we have examples of both, right? Like we have a requirements TXT cataloger, and we also have like a wheel egg metadata for looking at actual installed stuff. So it's not like outside of the realms of what we do in either of those cases. But we're going to raise up a package for Chrome, and they're probably going to be related by overlap ownership because one's going to be either underneath like the same file tree as files owned by the Electron package. So Chris.
Let's say the analysis I did last week on the install is correct, and we like there's no proof that Chromium's been installed. It's just all we have is Electron, and we were forced to create a synthetic package in that case. Is that acceptable? Or if we find no evidence, even though humanly we know the dependencies exist, but they've done such a good job at scrubbing Chromium's involvement that due to the installing of it, you can't find the versioning, you can't find any links to it. Are we cool with doing it that way? Or is there another path we want to explore before like creating that fake package?
Well, so when you were looking, you found no evidence with the Chrome binary. But then the manifest approach might probably apply. So like Will found evidence of in their source repo, they have a spot where they like bump a version of Chrome. So like there's a manifest there. There's some source material that says this is the version of Chrome that we're going to be using. So like, it would be like cataloging that. And you're right, it's not software that's technically present, but we know if Electron is in use at runtime, Chromium is going to be there. So like you can make an argument in the same way like the requirements TXT cataloger, it's not actually looking at install software, but it is looking at the intent to install it.
Yeah, if we could find, if we have access, if when we do npm install Electron, if that manifest comes along with it, then yeah, we can thumbs up based off that manifest. If it exists there, we can create the package.
And the question is it in, if you do an npm install, Electron, which side note, did anyone, I just got 503s.
Yeah, I got a 503 from the repo.
Oh, it probably 503 because there's a Google Cloud Platform outage right now. And if we're talking the Chrome stuff, that would cause
Okay. Yeah, internet snow day. Cool. All right.
Yeah, I'll see if the GCP, the GCP outage is still active and going on. So there's probably something in that chain that is making either NPM or the things consuming things related to Chrome unable to be accessed at the moment.
There's a pretty broad Cloudflare outage too, so it's just a bad time to try to download things from the internet.
We just learned of all the new terms. I have just one further question about this, which is when somebody builds the the executable, and all of the source material is gone, do we think it's important to detect Chromium there also?
Yeah, I'd be
When-
interested.
When what's gone? Sorry.
When all the source material is gone, like the manifest you're talking about, and they built an executable and delivered an executable to somebody, that like that's really the thing that is vulnerable that people would be concerned about, that does have a bundled Chromium in it. Is that something that we think is important enough to to spend some time figuring out a way to detect?
That's yet another cataloger. So I would argue that like the first one is about like the npm install aspect, and then the other one is about the like asset bundling, or I guess bundling, which I don't know much about. Like how is that bundled? That would be, I feel like it's another cataloger, right? Is it a zip file? Is it a like literally an executable? Is it a? I have no idea.
I think it's an executable, but yeah,
Ah, cool.
there's different ways to get a result there. I don't.
Oh, and the executable would literally be, okay. So then wouldn't the executable just literally be Chromium?
No, what they do is you end up with two pack files, Chromium 100% and Chromium 200%.pack. And inside there is a whole bunch of icons and a bunch of compressed tarbles. And somewhere in there, if you unpack it all, you might find it.
Got it. I mean, the reason I ask is if it, if it's like truly like an ELF or, PE file, then it's like, it's either self-extracting and then self-executing in some other way, or is just Chrome that knows how to like inspect itself. And so
Do we have
cool.
package aliases in V6 database today?
Oh, alias electron is Chromium, just as like a 1-to-1.
I don't know.
These are not big enough to be Chrome.
We have package specifier overrides. I think that's what you're asking about.
That's probably what I'm thinking of, yeah.
Package specifier overrides. This is really only for ecosystems. Like when we find, like, if you find that the ecosystem was really PHP, then you really meant PHP Composer, for instance, or if it was Swipple, then you really meant Swipple Pack. It's like little chain nuances like that.
All right, no further questions.
This would be a good issue to write up. So, and I think, well, okay, I know there's the issue that Chris, you brought, and so that's that in my head. That's the npm one, because he's using as an example like npm install scan the source repo. Why didn't you find it? And so that one in my head is like the manifest. Like go see if you can like catalog the manifest. It's probably worth a whole other issue just to say, hey, catalog Electron apps themselves. And I don't know if that means a new cataloger, or if that means a new source, meaning like we look just like we look at containers and we like break them apart and we find all the components within it. If that means we're talking about a new cataloger or a new source, or maybe both, I'm not certain. So I think that would be worthwhile to write though.
Okay, I'll write up that issue because I'm going to also do the investigation again to see if I can find that manifest file when this install completes successfully. And I'll follow up with the results on this issue of, does that metadata exist where you can find the manifest and intent to install and treat that as a package? And if not, what are the conclusions? How do we go forward? And the second issue of, do we need a new source or cataloger specifically for Electron apps? Because that would be cool. Okay.
Yeah. I shared in the chat link a link to a pull request of Electron updating the version of Chromium they depend on. So that might help you find, like if we're just going to look for like, hey, this file means Electron intends to pull in this Chromium version, you might find the file from the PR.
Yeah, it's in that deps file, all caps deps. And so I'm going to see where and how that's used, and if it even exists in either node modules or some other thing. But when let me look at the contents of that again. Steps. When I grepped for Chromium version or just Chromium in general, I got nothing, but I'll double check again. See what else we have.
Sweet. Are we done with that one? Lots for Chris. Yes. So that's that one we've done. These two. So Swift, Keith, that was yours, wasn't it?
I suppose so. Let's see.
Sorry.
Put a link again for it.
Yeah, 3961. There you go.
Oh, okay. So I guess my question for the team about this one, this particular package type has essentially a group, the same way that like NPM projects can have a group or Java can have the group. And I feel like we keep on getting more examples of this. And my question kind of for the team is like, is it time that we add a top level like group or namespace or something like that to the package to be able to add some of this important information that a lot of different package types actually use? Like one of the nice things is it would let us, not necessarily get rid of in version 1, but we could, put the Java group there, and we wouldn't have to like dig in the metadata and have, strange places to find it. NPM, similarly. And so like this ended up being something because of the way that we are constructing the package name for the Swift package. It doesn't have the github.com/Apple portion of it. But that is an important part of the group because that's part of the name in the vulnerability data that we have, and it's a valid part of the identity of the package too. So that was really kind of the question that I had for the team from this one.
So in right now I'm seeing like for the reproduction steps, like, yeah, we're finding like the Swift NIO SSL, and we're not including the group information in the name. We do have some catalogers that do keep like group like information in that name. I think it's mostly for like NPM projects. It'll be like at something slash, and then like a name. Is it that the cataloger is wrong? So not to dismiss like adding group to the package struct, but I am curious, like, is this like an instance where like the cataloger is just wrong and it should have been raising up like the full like name/namespace?
That's possible. And if you look, we're generating the correct pearls. We are extracting that information from some part of the record, and we're constructing the pearls with the namespace properly from that. Actually, I take that back. We're not. If you see, there's a .git in that.
Oh,
yeah. So we're trying to, but it's there apparently are some issues. But like to me, I'm not really sure what the right answer here is. I feel like they're two separate pieces of information that people might be interested in having separate. But it could just be that we're doing the wrong thing and we should be adding it to the name.
yeah. Well, and I'm not saying so. Yeah, and it sounds like there's at least something wrong with the cataloger. To maybe answer my question, but like, but to go back to your question, which is like, hey, should we add group? So how many places do we think this would apply to? We got JavaScript. We for the at something we have Java, that's group ID, artifact ID. We have apparently Swift. Do we have any more?
Those are the only three that I know for sure offhand. I
We do
believe
some-
there probably are more, but definitely those three.
Yeah, and I think the other ones I'm thinking of are probably from like the Cyclone DX group stuff from a few months back. That was more like a decoder path issue. We already do some gymnastics in Grype to get around the group IDs missing from like the name in a Java package, and we add it back in to do the search. So like, it would be nice if there was a first class place to put that information for Grype to combine that together. And that, I mean, so I'm not against adding a group. Is group the right name? There goes the real question. What would you call it?
I think what in Perl it's namespace, is that, I believe.
Yeah, it is. If we're looking for votes and not votes, I have a -1 for namespace.
Yeah,
Mostly
group,
because it got overused in Grype.
yeah, group
It's
seems
interesting.
reasonable.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, it's interesting to me. Like, one of the things that I think that's kind of frustrating about having the Perl and then like the name of the group broken out is that like we have like more than one place to put everything, right? And so that's just kind of, I don't know. I think if we were more focused on like make sure the Perl is exactly right and then match from the Perl, because the Perl is enough information, search THSA or whatever. That would make a lot of sense to me. So I don't know, like
It looks
I'm
like we're
kind of a
close.
maybe
Though.
on like add a new field. Yeah, I think what we've kind of done. Yeah, they are close. It's just kind of weird that like the Perl and this looks like it's not Syft JSON too. But it just seems weird to me that we can have this like drift between like some of the fields on this object are just parts of the Perl, and then there's the Perl, and like the drift is weird to me. So I think the only reason we're talking about adding a group field is because we're not matching from the Perl, if that makes sense.
We do get stuff from the Perl to match on.
Okay.
I mean, in fact, like, so when Grype is like kind of crafting the Grype package in order to do matching, it looks at, if it's Syft JSON, like the package metadata field. If it's there, it'll start populating other attributes. We look at the Perl, CPE, name, version. So that you can give just a list of Perls, for instance, and I think Keith, with your latest updates, it's behaving consistently now. Like, a list of Perls is I'll say quote unquote no different than if you had passed an SBOM in. The caveat being, like, if there's things that get expressed in an SBOM but not in the list of Perls, then like obviously there's going to be differences. Like for the obvious stuff, like this would be group ID, artifact ID, epic, all that good stuff. Anything you can put into a Perl, it could put into SBOM. There's parity.
Right. I think maybe you've answered the question, which is like, this should be working anyway, and because we have assuming we fix the minor issue with the Perl generation, like it's trying to construct the correct thing. So assuming that that's working, like this should be working. And I think it's probably just not because this package type isn't one that somehow takes that into account in Grype, and that's maybe the crux of this particular problem.
Well, is that totally right? I mean, maybe for being able to match against this is correct, but I remember this coming up for the Cyclone DX decoder issues, where it was like, oh, we have nowhere to put the group info, so like we'll put it into the name. It is in the Perl, but correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember if there was some awkwardness in like encode decode cycles of the same SBOM, where you might come up with different answers because you couldn't split it the same way. And like the conclusion was like that, if only there was a top level group field, then this would be very easy to do. And I don't know if I'm making that up. if I'm misremembering.
There's the weirdness is that going back to what you're saying about decoding pearls is if that is like one of the primary sources that we get the information, then that namespace, with some exceptions, becomes part of the name. So like we would be generating something with a name that would work if we were using the Perl or a Cyclone DX document, but we wouldn't be if we have a Syft document because we have the name, because we trust the name there and it's not the same, right? It doesn't have the group ID. So yeah, we do take that into account, assuming we decode first, encode, and it should be like, it should work that way, but it doesn't always work from Syft encoding and then back, if that makes sense. Like if it got encoded to Cyclone DX, for example, and then back to Syft, because we try to fill in all the missing parts from the Perl and from the Syft group, Cyclone DX group.
Does SBDX have anything for this? I don't think they do.
It does not.
Yeah,
I mean, aside from Perl, but
right. So, I mean, I'm definitely for the fix the Perl generation, watch it work. That's like low-hanging fruit. I'm not against adding group. But I mean, I could see the argument, if we don't need it, we don't need it. I'm just trying to say that I think there is more than just this one bug report for a reason to add the group field, is what I'm saying.
all right. Well, I think I have all I need to get this fixed without any major changes there. But appreciate the discussion.
Like two
Awesome.
discussions in one day for adding a new field to package. Like we talked about a version format hint earlier, now group. So
Right.
And a flag, whether it's present or not.
it's true. 3. Yeah, there you go.
Right. I don't think we've got time to start another one because we only have moments left. God, you pack it all in, don't you? Thank you, chaps, as always. Loads of information, and I hope we can do this again next week because I love it. Have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you all next week. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Cheerio.
Cheers.
Bye.